"Excuse me, may I take this call?" The words barely left Jasmine Richards' lips, quiet as breath. Yet they cracked through the fluorescent-lit stillness of the open-plan office like thunder. The line was still blinking. Area code 617, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Her heart skipped. Harvard admissions. She knew that number. But before she could even shift in her seat, it happened. "What did you just say?" barked Mr. Dalton. He stood up from his sleek, glass-walled office, his voice cutting through the low buzz of headset chatter and keyboard clatter. Heads turned. "You think this is a damn coffee shop? You get to take calls like this is your personal time?" Jasmine froze, fingers still hovering near her headset. "It's just—" she started, trying to keep her voice calm, low, professional. "No," he snapped, marching across the office like a man on stage. "You don't get to just anything. You're on my clock." He reached down, grabbed her headset, and yanked it clean off her head. The foam ear cushion bounced once on her desk, then rolled away. "Pack your things. You're done here." Silence fell. A thick, swallowing silence. No one moved. No one looked up, except for the screen in front of her, still blinking. Harvard admissions office. Incoming call. One of her colleagues gasped audibly. Dalton looked too late. He saw the screen. His jaw clenched. Jasmine stood slowly. No panic. No tears. She picked up her headset, carefully, like a surgeon returning an instrument to a tray, slipped on her coat, slid her phone into her bag, and walked out. No one stopped her. No one said her name. The glass doors sighed shut behind her. The elevator was empty. Of course it was. No one wanted to be seen with her now, the fired girl, the one who talked back. But Jasmine didn't care. Not really. Because something in her had snapped, not broken, released. She pressed the button for the lobby and stared at her reflection in the elevator's polished steel wall. There she was, brown skin, tired eyes, lips set like steel. 23 years old, top of her undergrad class, working nights in customer support while prepping for her LSAT. She'd applied to Harvard Law with fingers crossed, and her soul poured into every word of her application. And now they had called. They had called. She had been seconds away. As the elevator descended, her phone buzzed again. One new voicemail. Harvard admissions office. 3 weeks passed. It was a Monday morning like any other, except this time, the office didn't feel normal. It felt charged. Someone had taped a newspaper front page to the break room window. In huge black letters, "Black woman fired mid-call with Harvard. Now she's in." Underneath, a photo of Jasmine, in round glasses and a deep crimson Harvard sweater, standing in front of the law school gates. The room was packed, but nobody spoke. They just read. One by one. Even Dalton. Especially Dalton. His office door remained shut all day, because overnight the video had surfaced, shaky cell phone footage of him snatching her headset, screaming, the Harvard call ID glowing on her screen for all to see. One of the interns had leaked it anonymously. Now it had millions of views. The internet was not quiet. The hashtag #, Justice for Jazz, trended worldwide. Harvard's own press office issued a rare statement. "We are proud to welcome Ms. Jasmine Richards to Harvard Law School. Her story is a reminder that talent is often overlooked, but not unseen." By noon, there was an all-staff meeting. No one knew why, but they soon found out. A new HR director, a sharply dressed black woman in burgundy, heels clicking like punctuation marks, stood at the front of the conference room. Without a word, she played a video on the screen. Jasmine, smiling gently in the Harvard courtyard. She was older, calmer. Her voice filled the room. "I'm not angry. I'm grateful for the opportunity, for the silence that let me hear my own voice. Finally. And to my former co-workers, I hope you never forget this. Every time you make someone small, you teach them how to rise. The camera panned out behind her. The Harvard Law crest shimmered in gold. In the office, nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Dalton's mouth was a tight line. He couldn't look up. Nobody could. Outside, on the sidewalk, Jasmine breathed deeply. Boston air was crisper than Atlanta, but she liked the bite. It kept her sharp. She touched the edge of her law school ID badge. No bitterness, no regret. Only fire. The kind you don't put out. The kind you forge something from. The headline had faded, but the sting hadn't. It had been 3 months since Jasmine Richards stepped out of the call center with nothing but a coat, a dream, and a voicemail from Harvard. Now, she stood beneath a vaulted ceiling of oak and glass, books in one hand, law textbooks in the other, the word 1L stitched into her brain like a scar, or a crown. She should have felt proud. She didn't. Not yet. Because here, in this place of prestige and polished stone, the war hadn't ended. It had just changed uniforms. Jasmine sat in the front row of Contracts 2, where every eye seemed to glance at her, then flick away, like she was the answer key nobody wanted to admit they needed. The professor, an old white man with wire-rimmed glasses and a polished accent, called on her regularly. Too regularly. "Ms. Richards," he said, as if chewing the syllables, "since you were so vocal online, surely you can explain the principle of mutual assent in unilateral offers." She felt it again, that subtle blade behind the question. He wasn't curious. He was testing. The room turned slightly toward her, like satellites tilting to signal. Jasmine didn't flinch. She lifted her chin and replied calmly, "Mutual assent in a unilateral contract is only established when the offeree completes the requested act. The offerer's promise becomes binding upon full performance, not before. And silence, by itself, can't count as acceptance unless there's a history of such conduct." The room stilled. Even the professor blinked once, like he hadn't expected precision, just resistance. "Correct," he said curtly, and turned back to the board. But Jasmine could feel it, the tightening, the turning. Behind her, a whisper. "She talks like she's on a TED Talk." Another. "Let's see how long Harvard Law keeps her before she crumbles." She never looked back, but she heard it. Every dig, every microaggression dressed in civility, every dismissive chuckle in the library when she raised a point, every group project that suddenly had no space. And yet, every week, she showed up. Pressed blazer, hair wrapped neatly, highlighters stacked like soldiers in her bag. One evening in the dining hall, she sat alone. Again. Her study group had rescheduled without telling her. Again. She stared into her untouched soup until a familiar voice cut the silence. "Did you memorize the UCC too, or is that just natural-born brilliance?" She looked up. It was Jordan Knox, 3rd year, black, president of the Black Law Students Association. Tall, smooth-voiced, eyes sharp behind gold-framed glasses. "Don't flatter me," Jasmine said, deadpan. "I just haven't learned how to smile while being ignored yet." He laughed, pulling out a chair across from her. "Don't. It's overrated. But listen, you've made noise, Jazz. That scares people. Because I spoke Dutch to a phone? Because you embarrassed a CEO on camera and made it into Harvard Law. You became a symbol without asking. I didn't ask for any of this." "No," he said, leaning in, "but you're wearing it like armor now." She didn't reply, but her fingers tightened around the spoon like it was a sword. By week 7, the gloves came off. Her legal ethics professor gave back their midterm essays. Hers had a red line across the top. Too personal, stick to doctrine. She had written about systemic bias in pro bono access, cited real cases, shared her lived experience, quoted law, but apparently her voice was too much. The next day, the dean's office emailed her. An anonymous complaint had been filed. Aggressive tone during peer critique. Jasmine blinked at the screen. The irony cut like ice. She had barely spoken in that class, after being interrupted 3 times by classmates clarifying her answers. Still, she was the aggressor. She didn't cry. She printed the email, taped it to her dorm wall, and wrote, in bold red Sharpie across it, "Every system defends itself first." The backlash wasn't limited to Harvard. Out there, online, her name had become a lightning rod. Conservative blogs painted her as an entitled diversity case. Her face appeared in thumbnails next to captions like, "How victim culture took over the Ivy League." Someone leaked her undergrad GPA. Someone else doxed her family. Her mom, a school teacher in Atlanta, called in tears. Jasmine comforted her, then hung up and paced her tiny dorm room until her heels ached. She didn't want this war, but now she was in it. At 3:17 a.m. on a Wednesday, she opened her laptop. A blank Word document stared back. She started typing, not an assignment, not a paper, a letter. To the editorial board of the Harvard Law Review. By 5 a.m., the title was bolded at the top, "Invisible Until We Speak: What It Costs to Raise Your Voice in Rooms That Were Never Built for You." She didn't expect it to be published, but it was, and the moment it went live, something cracked open. Emails poured in, from Black students at other law schools, from first-gen women, from paralegals, from janitors who worked night shifts. "You put into words what we're not allowed to say. I didn't know anyone else felt it. I needed this." She read each one, every syllable like a seed, not praise, proof that she wasn't alone. That silence didn't mean absence. The backlash doubled, of course. The next faculty roundtable she attended, the moderator didn't greet her by name, only as "our recent guest author." Her classmates stared as if she had betrayed some unspoken oath. But Jasmine didn't shrink. She raised her hand when she had something to say. She called out contradictions when they appeared in case law, and when a visiting lecturer from a corporate firm smirked at her after she challenged a policy precedent and said, "Maybe you should consider a career in activism," she replied with perfect calm, "Maybe I should consider replacing you." The room went silent. Then someone clapped, just once, then twice. Then the room moved, and something changed. 1 month later, she got a call from a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, thumb hovering over decline, then answered. "Hello? Jasmine Richards?" "Yes. This is Dr. Lane, Senior Counsel at the American Civil Liberties Union. We read your piece, and we'd like to invite you to our summer clerkship program." Her breath caught. "We don't usually offer it to first years, but we think you're ready." She sat on the edge of her bed, the sun bleeding through her window like gold. "Thank you," she whispered, and meant it, not for the job, but for the moment. The proof that pushing forward, even when you're pushed out, was worth it. 6 months later, same city, same skyline. But Jasmine Richards was no longer the girl who walked out of a call center with her voice in her coat pocket. Now she walked into rooms that had once slammed shut, and people stood when she entered. The event was billed as the new face of inclusion, a corporate reckoning. Dozens of executives from tech, finance, and law firms, panelists in suits, lights, cameras. PR smiles sharpened like blades. But it wasn't the name of the conference that made the air shift. It was the guest of honor. When Jasmine stepped onto the main stage, White tailored blazer, natural curls pulled back in a braid crown, small crimson Harvard pin on her lapel. The room rose to its feet, not because they had to, because she made them. Her presence didn't ask for permission anymore. It commanded it. And in the front row, almost shrinking into his chair, sat him, Gregory Dalton, former CEO, former overlord of headset clicks and passive-aggressive power plays, the man who once tore off her headphones like he was pulling weeds from his garden. Now just Greg. A man with a LinkedIn bio that ended in the word previously. His new suit didn't fit quite right. His jaw was tighter, more tired. His smile cracked like old glass. When Jasmine took the microphone, she didn't look at him. Not at first. She looked at the crowd. Steady, cool, razor-focused. Then she began. When I was fired, it didn't feel like a big moment. It felt small, cramped, like I'd been shoved back into a closet I'd spent years crawling out of. What you all saw, the viral video, the headlines, the Harvard girl who stood tall, that wasn't triumph. That was survival. The truth? I was humiliated and afraid, because for a moment I believed what he said, that my voice didn't belong, that a girl like me from a zip code like mine couldn't pause to take a call from Harvard without being punished for dreaming too loudly. Her voice never shook, but the room did. But here's the thing about humiliation. It burns, but it doesn't kill. Sometimes it cooks something stronger in you, something they can't taste until it's too late. Her eyes found Dalton now, dead center. She didn't flinch. Mr. Dalton, you once told me the workplace isn't for personal distractions. So let me say this clearly. My success is not a distraction. My voice is not noise. And my presence isn't an interruption. It's the future walking into the room. Dalton didn't move, didn't blink. Cameras flashed. A quiet damn echoed from the back row. After the speech, they surrounded her. Recruiters, editors, policy advisors. They wanted panels, books, ambassadorships. But Jasmine wasn't here for business cards. She had one thing left to do. 2 weeks later, she returned to the place where it all began. The building hadn't changed. The call center's dull beige walls still pulsed with overhead lighting and the same weak coffee smell. The security guard buzzed her in with surprise and a nod. On the 3rd floor, employees were gathered in the main bullpen. A company-wide training was scheduled. New owners, new leadership, something about culture repair. At exactly 10 a.m., the lights dimmed. A short video played, footage of the company's changes, their new equity initiatives. Then, a new voice echoed over the speakers. Please welcome our guest speaker, someone whose story is part of our own history. Harvard law student, advocate, former employee, Jasmine Richards. The door opened. She stepped in. This time, they stood, even those who once looked away. Dalton wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He'd been quietly bought out months ago. No farewell email, no exit party, just a vanishing act. Jasmine took the mic, looked at the rows of familiar desks, tired eyes, and call screen dashboards. She let the silence breathe before speaking. 6 months ago, I left this building in silence. But today, I speak. Not for myself, but for the girl I was, and for every voice you ignored before it found an audience. She paused, scanned the room. That moment you all witnessed. The headset, the yelling, the humiliation. It wasn't about me being late or taking a call. It was about hierarchy, about who's allowed to take up space, who's allowed to be brilliant, and who must apologize for it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. Her old headset, worn, frayed on the side. She held it up. This was taken from me like I didn't earn it. like my voice was borrowed property. Well, I took it back, and now I use it differently. She set the headset gently on the podium. You may forget 100 voices that come through your queue each day, but don't forget this one. Afterward, she stood in the hallway. An older black woman approached, janitorial badge, gloves in her back pocket. She smiled, tears in her eyes. You made it out. Jasmine smiled softly. Number, I made it through. They hugged, quiet, unshaken, history passing between them. That night, Jasmine walked the Charles River in silence, phone buzzing in her coat pocket with more invitations, more applause, more noise. She ignored them all. Instead, she paused on a footbridge, watching the water shimmer with city lights. Her breath rose in clouds, but her chest felt warm. She remembered every insult, every time she was told to be quiet, every email that told her she was too much. And she thought, good, because too much is exactly what it took to break through. 1 year later, Harvard Law graduation. The dean read her name slowly, carefully. Jasmine Amara Richards, J.D., magna cum laude. She crossed the stage. Crowd cheering, cameras clicking. But Jasmine only looked at one face, her mother, standing in the third row, in a second-hand navy dress and church hat, hands over her mouth, tears running freely. Jasmine handed her the diploma. For every night you stayed up grading papers, for every time you said, "Don't shrink, baby. This is yours." And then she looked out at the crowd, future judges, CEOs, senators, and smiled. Not because she won, but because she belonged. And this time, no one could take that voice away.